Students, this is Shilpa Shetty, Assistant Professor, Department of Information Science and Engineering, AJIET, Mangalore. So, welcome to C Programming for Problem Solving. So, in this lecture, we will be discussing Module 3, Arrays and Strings. So, we already had few sessions from this module where we have discussed what are arrays, how to store and how to retrieve values from arrays. Then we have also discussed some algorithms related to searching and sorting. So we have already discussed what is linear search, what is binary search, what is selection sort, and also what is bubble sort. So that is all about one-dimensional array, and in this session we will be discussing two-dimensional arrays. So the topics that will be covered under this session are what is a two-dimensional array, how to declare a two-dimensional arrays, which are the different ways of storing elements in two-dimensional array. Then we will also discuss some sample programs that makes use of two-dimensional array. So students, you all know what is an array. Array is nothing but a collection of elements of same data type. So in order to access the elements of the array, we use index. So now, what are two-dimensional arrays? So in two-dimensional array, elements will be arranged in rows and columns. That means elements will be arranged in the form of a table here where there are rows as well as columns. Now, to identify two-dimensional arrays, we will use two indices, say I and j, where I index indicates the row number and j indicates the column number. That means in case of a one-dimensional array, we were using only one index. That is, for example, if you have to access the element at position 1 in the one-dimensional array, then you would be writing a of 0. That means there you are using only one index. Whereas in a two-dimensional array, there are rows as well as columns. So if you have to access an element from the two-dimensional array, you have to mention the element belongs to which row and the element belongs to which column. So you cannot just mention only the row number or only the column number. So to identify any element, you need both row number as well as column number. That is the reason why you are using two indices in two-dimensional array. Or a two-dimensional array it can be considered as an array of arrays. See, if you take a one-dimensional array, you can just think it of as one row. So if you have many such rows, if you just put them together, all the rows, then you can just imagine it as a table. So two-dimensional array is nothing but array of arrays where you will have both rows and columns. Two-dimensional arrays are also called as matrices. You can also call two-dimensional array as a matrix. So now let us see how to declare two-dimensional array. So you already know how to declare one-dimensional array. So in order to declare a one-dimensional array, we write the data type of the array followed by the name of the array and the size of the array in square brackets. Whereas if you have to declare a two-dimensional array, first you will write the data type of the array, so which is same as one-dimensional array, followed by array name. But when you mention the size, here you have to mention the total number of rows and the total number of columns. So it's not a one-dimensional array. So there are rows and columns. So you need to mention both of them. That is the number of rows and the number of columns, or the row size and column size. So in order to mention row size and column size, you have to write them within square brackets. So that is how you declare a two-dimensional array. So let us take an example. So if you have to declare an array called A of integer data type, with 2 rows and 3 columns. Remember, there are 2 rows and 3 columns in the array that you are going to declare. Then you write it as int a of 2, 3. 2 and 3 have to be written within square brackets. So, the declaration statement creates a 2-dimensional array with 2 rows and 3 columns. So, if I consider this array has 2 into 3 equal to 6 elements. So, there are 2 rows and 3 columns. So, the total number of elements in the array is 2 into 3. That is the number of rows into number of columns. So, 2 into 3 is equal to 6. So, there are 6 elements in this array, and the memory allocated for these 6 elements is 12 bytes, because this array is an integer array, and you all know that integer occupies 2 bytes in memory, and we have 6 elements. So, each of the 6 elements occupy 2 bytes. So, the total amount of memory allocated will be 2 into 6 or 6 into 2, which is equal to 12 bytes. So, here is an example or here is a structure of a 2-dimensional array. So, this structure represents a 2-dimensional array with 2 rows and 3 columns. So, when you have 2 rows, the rows are numbered as 0, starting from 0. So, the rows are 0 and 1. Similarly, columns are also numbered starting from 0. So, because I said there are 3 rows, so the column numbers would be 0, 1 and 2. Now, the element at row 0 and column 0 is identified as A of 0, 0. Similarly, the element at row 0 and column 1 is identified as A of 0, 1, and the element at row 0 and column 2 is identified as A of 0, 2. Similarly, coming to the next row, the element at row 1 and column 0 is identified as A of 1, 0, and the element at row 1 and column 1 is identified as A of 1, 1, and the element at row 1 and column 2 is identified as A of 1, 2. That means first index would be the row number and the second index would be the column number. So this is how you can access the elements from the array by using the indices. Remember, there is one important point to note. Whenever you initialize a 2-dimensional array, it is always necessary to mention the second dimension. What is the second dimension? The second dimension is the column number, whereas the first dimension, which indicates the row, is optional. That is because if the number of columns are known, then we can switch between the rows very easily. That means if you know that the total number of columns is 3, then once you finish storing 3 elements, first 3 elements, the next element, that is the 4th element, would obviously belong to row 2. That is because you know that each row has 3 elements. So, if you know the number of columns, you can place the elements accordingly. But just by knowing row number, it is not possible to store the elements in a 2-dimensional array, because you do not know how many columns are present in each row. So that is why always the second index is a must, whereas the first index is not necessary when you initialize the elements of the 2-dimensional array. So now let us discuss how to initialize a 2-dimensional array. Again, as we discussed in 1-dimensional array, so we have 2 approaches that can be used to initialize a 2-dimensional array. That is, the arrays can be initialized during the compile time, or it could also be initialized during the runtime. So first let us see compile time initialization. Compile time initialization can be done in one of the following ways. So either we can do it by using basic initialization or initialization without size or partial initialization. So first let us see how do we perform basic initialization. So in basic initialization, we mention the array size and all the values during the initialization. So that means when you initialize this array, you have to mention the size of the array. That means you will mention both the row size as well as the column size. Accordingly, you will also specify all the values of that array. For example, let us consider an integer array A with 2 rows and 3 columns. So first we write this as int A of 2, 3. So integer array whose name is A, 2 rows and 3 columns. So the indices would be 2 and 3. So now because we have mentioned 2 and 3, we know that the total number of elements in this array is 2 into 3. As I told you, it is number of rows into number of columns, so which is equal to 6 in this case. So we are mentioning all the 6 elements of the array. Now if you have to store if you have to initialize the array elements, then after the declaration of the array, we place a equal to, and within square brackets we specify all the elements of the array separated by commas. So the elements of array A are 6, 4, 2, 1, 8 and 26. So all these elements are specified within braces followed by a semicolon. So in the above example, we have mentioned the size as well as all the 6 elements of the array. Now the second category is initialization without size. So initialization without size, I already told you that if we have to initialize an array, there is no necessary to specify the row size, whereas the column size is a must. So in this technique we are using the same approach. That means we will not specify the row size, but we have to mention the column size. So let us take an example here. Int A of, see, the first index is empty. The first index is not mentioned here. A of square brackets of 3. That means the number of rows are not known here, whereas the number of columns are known. So we have 3 columns in the array. So what happens when we initialize these elements in the array? So we have the values 6, 4, 2, 1, 8, 26. So when we do this, we know that the number of columns are 3 in the array. So the first 3 values, that is 6, 4 and 2, would occupy the first row. So once 3 elements are filled, we know that we have finished that particular row. So the remaining elements will go to the next row. So 1, 8, 26 will be the elements of the second row. So which means that this array has 2 rows and 3 columns. So that is how we can initialize the array. But remember, when you use this technique, we are just skipping the row size, whereas we have to mention the column size. Also, we have to mention all the elements of this array. The third technique in compile time initialization is partial initialization. So, as the name suggests, in this technique, we will not initialize the array completely. Only few elements of the array will be initialized. Now, let us take an example here. Int A of 2, 3. So, the number of rows are 2, number of columns are 3. So, the total number of elements in this array is 2 into 3, which is equal to 6. So when you initialize the elements of the array, just look at the example. We have written within braces, we have written 1, 2 and another set as 5. So we have two braces here. So within brace we have one more pair of brace here which contains the elements 1, 2 and one more pair of braces contains the element 5. So what this means is, whenever you specify elements within braces, so that represents a particular row. So here 1, 2, elements 1, 2 belong to the first row. That means row 0, and element 5, which is again written within braces, represents the second row. So the elements of the first row are 1 and 2. So that element will be placed here. So the 1 will be placed in row 0, column 0, and 2 will be placed in row 0 and column 1. So row 0 and column 2 will be empty in this case because we have not mentioned we have not specified the element. Similarly, in the second row there is only one element, that is 5. So 5 would occupy this place, that is row 1 and column 0. So therefore here row 1 and column 1 would be 0. Similarly, row 1 and column 2 will also be 0. So this is partial initialization. So when you are initializing the array partially, so the elements of each row has to be enclosed within braces. So now let us consider how do we perform runtime initialization. So in case of one-dimensional array, we know that runtime initialization can be done by using for loop and scanf statement. That is, when you run the program, if you have to initialize the array elements, we write a for loop there that continuously reads the elements and store the elements in the required location. So the similar approach is used here for two-dimensional array. So two-dimensional array can also be initialized during runtime. Two for loops are needed to initialize two-dimensional array at runtime. So let me tell you why do we require two-dimensional array. So you know that in one-dimensional array it's a linear array. That means there is only one row. So you require only one for loop that spans across the elements of the array. Whereas in a two-dimensional array, there are rows as well as there are columns. That means for each row there are columns, right? So there are two for loops that are required here. The first for loop indicates the number of rows. It runs for the number of rows, and the second for loop runs for the number of columns. So always remember, whenever we have a two-dimensional array or a matrix, two-dimensional array are also called as matrix. So in this case we will be using two for loops. Now let us see an example. Suppose that we have a two-dimensional array called A with m rows and n columns. So the order of the that is the size of this two-dimensional array is mn. So then we can initialize this array as follows. So for I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. Next, for j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. So the first for loop, it's goes from 0 till m, 0 till m minus 1. That means where m is nothing but the number of rows. So first for loop is for the number of rows. It indicates the row number like row 0, row 1, row 2. Now when you are in row 0, you have to read values for row 0, column 0, row 0, column 1, row 0, column 2, likewise. So for this purpose we are using another for loop That is for j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. So n is the number of column, and that's why the second for loop executes for n number of columns. So that is how this for loop works. That means when I is equal to 0, that means when you are in row 0, all the values of row 0 will be read. That is by using columns. So once you are finished with row 0, next I becomes 1. Again you will read all the values of row 1. Next I becomes 2. Now you will read the values of row 2 by using the inner for loop. Likewise this process continues. And we know that if you have to read the values, we need to use scanf. So scanf %d A of ig. The index is always specified by row and column. So here outer for loop I told it is used for row, and the inner for loop is used for columns. So first we specify the outer index, that is row index, and then column index. So the index would be I and j here. So scanf ampersand A of I, comma A of I j. So this is how we perform runtime initialization. So now let us write a program to read and display a matrix, or to read and display elements of a two-dimensional array. So in this program we have to create a two-dimensional array, and in that two-dimensional array we have to place some values, and once the values are placed in the two-dimensional array, we have to display the values that are in that array. So this program is very easy, because the important thing that is required here is to store the values and display the values. We have already discussed how to store the values, especially the runtime initialization, that is by using two for loop. So the same approach you are using, but now if you have to display the values, again you know that whatever concept you are using for storing values, same concept will be used for retrieving the values. Only thing is that the scanf statement has to be replaced by printf statement. So the same logic is applied here. So let us discuss this program. Hash include stdio.h. So that is to include the standard input output head of file, void main int a of 10 10. So let us first declare a two-dimensional array with 10 rows and 10 columns, and the actual number of elements that you're stored in that you're going to store in this array is indicated by the number of rows and columns. So here m represents the number of rows and n represents the number of columns, and I and j are the loop variables for the two for loops that we are going to use. So this is about declaration. So next let us read the number of rows and number of columns in which you have to store the values. So printf, enter the number of rows and columns, scanf %d ampersand m ampersand n, because m and n are declared as integers, and using one scanf you are reading two values, so there has to be two %ds. The first value that you are reading will be stored in m, and the second value that you are reading will be stored in n. That means in case you enter 2 and 3, the two values are 2 and 3, then 2 will be m and 3 will be n, or 2 indicates the number of rows and 3 indicates the number of columns. So once we know the order of the matrix, now let us read the elements into the matrix. So printf, enter elements of the matrix. So to read elements to the matrix, we are using two for loops, so which is already discussed. So we write for I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. After this there has to be a brace. Then for j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. See, the first loop will go from 0 to m minus 1, second one to 0 to n minus 1. J plus plus. Scanf percentage D ampersand A of ij. I think the reason for writing less than m and less than n is it should be clear, because these are arrays and indices start from 0. So that's why when you have m rows, the rows numbers will be 0, 1, 2 till m minus 1. So that's why we write the condition as I less than m or j less than n. So now once the values are read into this two-dimensional array, so let us display the elements of the array. Okay, so here we have an example of how these for loops work. So let us start with the for loop directly. So we have initially I is equal to 0, and we know that 0 is less than m. So let us consider that the m and n values entered by us are 2 and 3. So I is equal to 0 and 0 is less than 2. The condition is true. So the control will come inside the for loop. So once the control comes inside the for loop, there is another for loop which initializes j to 0. So now j becomes 0. So the condition is checked now if j is less than n. N value, I told you it is 3 and 0 is less than 3. The condition is true. So the statement inside this inner for loop gets executed. So what happens here? Scanf percentage D ampersand A of ij. So the value that you enter will be stored in A of ij. So I value is 0, j value is also 0. So the value that you entered, say you enter 1, will be stored in A of 0, 0. So that is what this picture is showing you. So here we have I as 0, j as 0. So the value that you are entering A of 0, 0, which is equal to 1. Imagine, that means just imagine that we are entering 1. So that will be stored in A of 0, 0. So once the statement is executed, so now the updation part of for loop will get executed. So that is nothing but j plus plus. So when you execute j plus plus, j was 0. Now it becomes 1 now. Again the condition is checked here. That is j less than n. J is 1, 1 is less than n. N value is 3, 1 is less than 3. The condition is true. So again this for loop will get executed. So again the scanf will get executed now. So it will read a value and it will store in A of ij. So I value is has not yet changed. It is still 0, whereas j is 1. So the value that you enter will be stored in A of 0, 1. So imagine that the value that you enter is 2. So if you enter 2, the value that you enter will be stored in A of 0, 1 now. Next, so again once the statement is executed, again the updation part will get executed, which will increment the value of j. So j was 1 earlier. So now j will become 2 and 2 is less than 3. N value is 3. 2 less than 3. The condition is true. So the for loop will get executed again. So again it will read another element and that will be stored in A of ij. I is 0 whereas j is 2. So whatever value enter will be stored in A of 0, 2. So imagine that we have entered 3 now. So that 3 gets stored in A of 0 and 0, 2. So once this is done, again the updation part of this for loop will get executed. J plus plus. So j was 2 earlier. Now it becomes 3. And is 3 less than n? N value is 3. Is 3 less than 3? The condition is false. So the for loop will not get executed. So the for loop is over now. Next, so the control will come to the end of the for loop. So there are no statements inside the for loop. So now outer for loop. So what happens now? Again once all the statements inside the for loop are executed, then the control will come here to I plus plus. That means one complete iteration of the outer for loop is over now. One complete execution. I plus plus. So I was 0 now initially. Now I becomes 1. So that is shown here. I was 0. Now I becomes 1. Is I less than m is 2 here. 1 less than 2, the condition is true. So the control will come inside the for loop. Now the first statement inside the for loop is one more for loop, that is for j loop. So now in j loop what happens, j will get initialized to 0 again. So remember, this is the fresh execution of the for loop. I hope you all know how for loop works, right? So first, only during the first iteration there is initialization takes place, then the condition will be checked. After this, that statements of inside the for loop will get executed. So once that is done, the updation part will get executed. Again the condition is checked. So based on the condition, whether it evaluates to true or false, the statement inside the for loop will get executed. So that's a repeated process, right? So now we have I equal to 1, j is equal to 0. So when j less than n, because j value is 0, 0 is less than 2, 0 is less than 3, n value is 3 here, condition is true, so control will come to the inside the for loop, that is scanf. So scanf will read a value and it will place it in a of ij. So now I value is 1 and j value is 0. So a of ij is a of 1 0. So whatever value you enter will be stored in a of 1 0. So if you enter 4, then 4 will be stored in a of 1 0. So likewise this continues. So next time j will become 1. I will still be 1. So a of 1 1, 5 gets stored. And next time j becomes 2, next iteration, and the value that you enter will be stored in a of 1 2, that is 6. So that's the process here. So once a of 1 2 is 6, again this inner for loop will get terminated. So the control will come to the outer for loop. So in the outer for loop, again I plus plus will get executed. Now I is 1 plus plus is 2. So I becomes 2. So now the condition will be checked. Is 2 less than 2? 2 is not less than 2, whereas 2 is equal to 2. So condition is false. So this for loop will stop completely. So that is how this works. So I hope this is clear. So once all this complete for loop executes, the status of the array will be like this. So we have array A, two-dimensional array A, which is initialized with 1 2 3 4 5 6. So if you are reading, first you should read the row number and column, then column number. So a of 0 0 will be 1, a of 0 1 will be 2, a of 0 2 is 3. Next, coming to the next row, a of 1 0 is 4, a of 1 1 is 5, a of 1 2 is 6. So that is how we initialize the array. So once the array is initialized, so we can display the elements of the array. The procedure is same. So again we will write two for loop. For I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. Outer for loop, the condition is checked with the row number. Inner for loop is with the column number. So for j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. Now here what we are doing is we are not reading the values. We have already read the values. So whatever value is stored in the array, that has to get printed now. So we use the printf function. So printf %d ampersand, there's no ampersand in printf %d a of ij. So like how the earlier for loop executed by storing the values, same way this for loop also will get executed, but this time instead of storing values, whatever values are stored already, that will get retrieved and it gets printed. So there is one important thing to notice here. So we all know that once this inner for loop executes completely, complete execution of inner for loop, it means you have finished one row. Am I right? I think that let us take an example here. Okay, so here if you can observe here, so when I, this indicates I, and this here, these are the j values. So when I is 0, outer for loop, inner for loop will execute 3 times. For j is equal to 0, j equal to 1 and j equal to 2. So it will print the values here yeah, 1, 2 and 3 will get printed actually. So once you finish with one row, that means once you finish 1, 2 and 3, then remaining elements are from the next row. So what happens, you should insert a new line. So once you are done with one row, the elements have to be printed in the next line, because these are the elements from the next row. So what we do is, when we finish the inner for loop, once we finish, after that we write a printf \n. This is what this indicates is, once we finish one complete row of a matrix, the next you are printing a new row, so you are inserting a new line. So this is very important concept. Otherwise all the values will get printed in the same line. We do not want that. We want the elements to get printed according to the row and column. So that's why we write this, okay, printf \n. So we are inserting a new line once we finish a particular row. So the printf \n should come after the for loop, inner for loop, and before the outer for loop. So what happens here in this case, whatever elements are there in the array, it will get displayed. So the procedure is just the reverse here. So already the array has the elements. This array is already having the elements. Whatever values are there, so now it should be printed one by one. It will get printed. So instead of scanf, now it is printf. So whatever value is there, the compiler will fetch the value and it will display the values. So a sample output of this program will look like this. So enter the number of rows and columns. So let us enter 2 and 3. Enter the elements of the matrix. So let us go on entering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So later the matrix gets displayed as 1, 2, 3 belongs to the first row, because we have written the number of columns are 3 and number of rows are 2. So the next row will be displayed in the next line, that is the elements are 4, 5 and 6. So similarly, C of 1, 0 will be A of 1, 0 plus B of 1, 0. So it is 1 plus 1 again, 2. And finally, C of 1, 1 will be A of 1, 1 plus B of 1, 1. That is 1 plus 1 equal to 2. So this is matrix C. So remember, it is C matrix is sum of matrix A and matrix B. So that is done. So we have matrix C. So now the last step is to display the matrix C. So again, in order to display, we are using the same procedure. That is, we will write two for loops. So sum of two matrices is, for I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. For j is equal to 0, j less than n, g plus plus. Printf %d C of ij. So we are printing the elements of matrix C, and as I told you, inner for loop is used to print a particular that is all the values of a particular row. So once we finish one particular row, we have to go to the next line to print the elements of the next row. So once you finish the inner for loop, we will print a new line. So we write printf \n just before closing the outer for loop. So that is about this program. So let's see a sample output here. So enter the number of rows and columns. So we have entered 2 and 2. This is similar to the previous example that we have discussed. Enter the elements of matrix A. Let us enter 1, 1, 1, 1. Enter the elements of matrix B. Again, let us enter 1, 1, 1, 1. So final result is matrix C. So sum of the two matrices will be 2, 2, 2, 2, which is nothing but elements of matrix C. Our next program is to find transpose of a matrix. So what is transpose of a matrix? So if you have a matrix C, its transpose is obtained by interchanging the elements of rows and columns. That means the elements of rows will be brought to columns, and column has to be brought to the rows. So that is transpose of the matrix. So let us see the program here. So in this program, what we will do is we will take a matrix A of order m cross n, and then we will create transpose of that matrix, which is nothing but n cross m. So the transpose of matrix A will be stored in another matrix, say B. So let us see the program here. So hash include stdio.h void main. So we have matrix A and B here. So int A of 10 10, B of 10 10. So here A is the original matrix and B matrix is its transpose matrix, and I and J, they are used for the for loop. They are the loop variables, and M and represents the order of matrix A. So in order to make this program execute properly, we assume that both M and N are same. That is, either it is like 2 cross 2, 3 cross 3. That's how it should be. Okay, so first we will read the values of rows and columns. So M and N values. So printf, enter the rows and columns. Enter rows and columns for matrix. That is, enter the number of rows and number of columns. So scanf %d ampersand m ampersand n. So we have read the number of rows and number of columns. The next step is to read the elements of the matrix, and we know that to read elements to a matrix we need to use two for loops. The first for loop is for I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. Then the second for loop is for for j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. The elements are stored in matrix A. So we write scanf %d ampersand A of I, j. So this is how we can store elements into matrix A. So once we are done with matrix A, now we have to find its transpose, and let us store the transpose of matrix A in matrix B. So now the next step is to find the transpose matrix. To find the transpose matrix, I told you, we are simply exchanging the row index and the column index. So let us see how it is done. So here is the procedure. For I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. For j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. The procedure is same here. To find the transpose, again we need to write two for loops. So the transpose matrix is matrix B. So we write B of ij is equal to, what is B matrix? It is transpose of matrix A. So transpose is interchanging rows and columns. So what do we write here? B of ij is A of ji. So this is the most important statement here. B of ij, the element at any particular row and column of matrix B is nothing but the value of matrix A with that column and that particular row. So A of B of ij is A of ji. This is a very important step here. So you are just interchanging the rows and columns. So once this for loop executes completely, we have the transpose matrix in matrix B. So now the next step is to display matrix B. Again, to display matrix B, we are using two for loops. So again we write for I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. for j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. Printf percentage d, b of ij. So we are displaying matrix B here. And again, once you print a row of the matrix, we have to start the next row in a new line. So we write printf slash n. That is after the inner for loop and before the outer for loop. And one more thing to notice here is, whenever we print the element of a matrix, there is a \t written, percentage d \t. That is just to give a space after printing each element of the matrix. So we do not want the elements to be printed as continuously. For example, if the elements of row 1 are 1, 2 and 3. So if you don't put \t, the elements would be printed without space. So 1, 2 and 3 would be printed as a single number 123. But if you want the elements to look like individual elements of the matrix, then we need to put \t, or you can just give a space. So that is about this program to find the transpose of matrix A. So here is a sample output. So enter the rows and columns for matrix. So let us enter the values as 2 and 2. So m and n values are 2 and 2. Then first enter the matrix elements. So we are entering the elements of matrix A. The elements entered by us is 1, 2, 3, 4. So first row has 1 and 2, second row has 3 and 4. So once we have entered the elements of matrix B, the transpose of elements of matrix A are entered. The transpose of matrix A is calculated and that result is stored in matrix B. So now the matrix B gets displayed, which is the transpose matrix, and that is nothing but the rows and columns are exchanged. So 1, 3, 2, 4. So the earlier matrix A was 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the transpose matrix B is 1, 3, 2, 4. So that is how you can find transpose of matrix, a particular matrix, that is just by exchanging the rows and columns. So in the next program that we have is to copy elements of one matrix into another matrix. So in this program we will copy the elements of a matrix to another matrix. That means if we have a matrix A with some values, matrix B, the resultant matrix will be copy of matrix A. That means all the elements from matrix A will be copied to matrix B. So this program is again very simple. So we have already discussed how to find the transpose of the matrix, how to find sum of the matrices, also how to read and display matrix. So this program is quite similar to the previous program with a very small change. So let us start the program. So we have the header file stdio.h, then void main. So then coming to the declaration part, we have I and j. So whenever we have a matrix program, we need two loop variables. So we have taken them as I and j. Then m and n indicates the number of rows and columns. So that is the order of the matrix is m cross n. Then A of 10, 10. It is the original matrix that we have. And B of 10, 10 is the resultant matrix, that is copy of matrix A. So first let us read the number of rows and number of columns. So printf, enter the rows and columns of matrix A. Scanf %d, ampersand m, ampersand n. So m and n values are stored now which is the number of rows and number of columns. So now first let us read elements to matrix A. So first let us create a matrix called A. So we write two for loops here. For I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. For j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. Scanf %d ampersand a of ij. So once these for loops gets executed completely, we will have all the elements of matrix A. So matrix A is created now. Now the next step is to create matrix B. But what is matrix B? Matrix B is copy of matrix A. So matrix B is the resultant matrix here, and that matrix is copy of matrix A. So let us see how this copying is done. The first thing to keep in mind is if you have to copy the elements of matrix A to matrix B, then first you have to access the elements of matrix A. And I already told you, if you have to access elements of any matrix, then we need the set of for loops. So the procedure is again similar to the previous one. So we write two for loops here. For I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. For j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. So the two for loops are written. So what do we do in these two for loops? We has to read the elements of, read in the sense, access the elements of matrix A and assign it to matrix B. So the statement that we would be writing is B of ij is equal to A of ij, which means the value from matrix A has to be assigned to matrix B, or matrix B is a copy of matrix A. It's very simple, just accessing the value of matrix A and placing it in matrix B. So again, once we are done with these for loops, once these for loops are executed completely, now matrix B is created, which is a copy of matrix A. So the last step here is to print the values of matrix B. So again we write the two for loops. For I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus. For j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. Printf %d /t b of ij. So here we are printing the matrix B. Okay, and again, as we have discussed many times, so once we print each row of the matrix, we have to insert a new line to print the next row of the matrix, or to get a output in the form of a matrix. So printf \n. So the last set of for loop is used to print the matrix B. So this program is very simple. We are first, once the declaration part is done, we will read the values of m and n, that is number of rows and columns. After that we will store the elements in matrix A. Then next again we will write for loops to copy the elements of matrix A to matrix B. Then we will display the elements of matrix B. So here if matrix A has these elements, okay, 1 1 1 1, so there 0 1 which is written in green, it represents the row number and column number, that is they are the indices there. So the matrix actual elements are 1 1 1 1. So let's take another matrix B, which is again 1 1 1 1. Now how B is 1 1? Because it is simply copy of matrix A. So let's see a sample output here. So enter the rows and columns of matrix A. So let's enter the order as 2 2 x 2 matrix. Enter the elements of matrix A. So the elements of matrix A are 1 2 3 4. So then we will copy the matrix to B and we'll display B matrix. So the elements of matrix B will be again 1 2 3 4 because it is copy of matrix A. So now we have already discussed a few programs from two-dimensional array. I think you're all clear with what is one-dimensional array and what is two-dimensional array. Basically, one-dimensional array, as you know, it is a sequence of elements or a collection of elements of same data type and are stored in consecutive memory location. And how do we access them? We access the elements of one-dimensional array by using index. And two-dimensional array is nothing but collection of elements of same data type. Again, that means a two-dimensional array is also an array, but the elements are stored in rows and columns, that is in the form of a matrix. And in order to access the elements of two-dimensional array, we use two indices, that is row index and column index. Generally I and j. First I represents the row index and j represents the column index. So we have already discussed a few sample programs. So now we all know how we can store elements in one-dimensional array, two-dimensional array, how to retrieve the elements, etc. So now let us discuss what are the advantages and disadvantages of using arrays. The advantage of using an array is array gives us the ability to store and retrieve large amount of data without declaring many separate variables. So that is the main advantage of array. So what this means is, see, let's take an example. Suppose that you have to store marks of a student. Let's take there are 6 subjects and you want to store marks of 6 subjects. Now suppose that there was no concept of array, then these 6 marks you could be storing it as, say, marks 1, marks 2, marks 3 till marks 6. And these variables marks 1 and till marks x are 6 separate variables. So that is how you will store. But imagine that you have to store some data in huge number. So in that case, it is not feasible for you to store or for you to create separate variable, right? For example, if you have to store marks of all semesters, of all subjects of the engineering course, then there would be many marks to be stored. For example, if we consider 6 semesters or 6 subjects into 8 semesters, then we will have to store around 48 marks, plus there could be some lab also. So it is not feasible for us to create variables like mark 1, mark 2 till marks 48. Instead of that, we can use array. So what is the advantage? We will have to access all the marks by using a common name, and it is very easier for us to access the values just by using a number, which is nothing but index of the array. So that is the advantage of using array. And when we use an array, we know that in the memory, all these marks are stored in consecutive manner. So because of arrays, we have the ability to store and retrieve large amount of data without declaring separate variables. So that is the main advantage. Now let us discuss what are the disadvantages or limitations of using an array. The first disadvantage is the size of an array that you specify at the time of creation can't be altered, or other words, you cannot add more elements to an array other than the specified size. That means if you have declared an array of size 10, for example, if you have an array called A whose size is 10, you think that there are 10 values to be stored in the array, so you declare an array of size 10. But now you realize that 10 is not sufficient, you need large amount of memory. say you want 20, then it is not possible for you to change the size of the array. So you cannot make A of 10 to A of 20. So once you write A of 10, then memory enough to store 10 values will be allocated. And this is static memory. So you cannot change the size of memory being allocated. So that is one disadvantage of using array. Another advantage is it is difficult to insert an element between two existing elements. Or what it means is, suppose that we have an array of 5 values. Say the values stored in array are 5, 10, 15, 20 and 25. Now, you know that the first element is 5 and the second element is 10. Now, between 5 and 10, if you have to insert another element, say 8, that means instead of your array being 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, you want it to be 5, 8, 10, 15, 20, 25. Then, the approach that you have to use is, you have to push or you have to move all the elements from the second position till the end to one by one position towards right. That means you know that element 25 is stored in A of 4 because A of 0 is 5, and I told you 5 elements, the last element is 25 which will be stored in A of 4. That has to be moved to A of 5. Now A of 4 is empty. The element at A of 3, which is 20, you have to bring it in place of 25, that is A of 4. Next, 15, you have to get it to A of 3. When you do that, A of 2 will be empty, or A of 2 which has 10, or A of 1 which has 10 can be moved to A of 2. That means you start from the last element, you start moving each element of the array from the last element to one position towards right. So only after you move the elements like that, the element where you want to insert an element, or the position where you want to insert an element will be empty, and then you can insert the element. So that is what it means. That means if you have 1000 elements in your array, and if you have to add a new element at position 10, then the 990 elements which are towards right of 10th element has to be moved by one position just to insert one element. So that is what it means. So it is difficult to insert an element between two existing elements. So this is one more disadvantage of using array. The other disadvantage is the amount of memory taken by an array depends on size specified for the array at the time of declaration. This is the other way. That means, suppose that you have declared an array of size 100. Say you have declared A of 100. But actually you want to store only 5 elements. That means after declaring an array of size 100, you will ask the user how many elements you want to store in the array. Say the user enters 5. That means an array of size 100 is created. That means you have taken so much memory to store 100 elements, but you are storing only 5 elements. So when you do this, the memory for 95 elements is getting wasted. So that is another problem that is associated with array. So the amount of memory allocated, it depends on how much you specify during declaration, because it is static. This is done during the compile time. So that is one more disadvantage. So if you allocate more memory but you want to store less amount of data, you are wasting large amount of memory. So these are the disadvantages or limitations of using array, and there are some procedures or there are some other data structure using which you can avoid this limitation, that is, for example, by using linked list, etc. So I think that is what we have in this session. Thank you very much for watching this.